Hello, Miss Irene Kane.
Hello, Donald.
I am so honored to have you here with our podcast today.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Really appreciate having the opportunity to spend a week in paradise with you, even with the weather.
Yes. Unfortunately, yes.
First of all, where are you from originally, Irene?
Originally, I was born in California, Southern California, but I've been rooted here. So I was born there as an infant. I was brought down here and raised most of my life here. And in that time, probably almost every other year, I'd go to the United States on a holiday and visit family.
So you're sort of, well, I guess it wouldn't be bi-coastal. It would be sort of coastal island for you.
Yes.
Okay. And how did you get exposed to fencing?
Well, I was getting my education out in Southern California, and I remember watching a fencing competition on TV, and I was captivated by the art and the beauty of fencing. So ever since then, I've been mesmerized by it. That's how I knew about fencing. Living here in the South Pacific Islands, way down south of the Pacific Islands, that's something I haven't been exposed to until I was in California during my college days. So yes, that's how fencing was exposed to me for the first time. And ever since then, I remember it. And my first time watching a real-life competition was in the London Olympics 2012. And it got me more fascinated with it. So that's how I started an interest in fencing.
So I understand you have a sports background, though?
Yes, I do. I am a wrestler and also a volleyball player during my high school days. I grew up with a lot of boys that are my cousins and brothers, and so I was usually the only girl around, and so I was, rough and, I grew up very much like a tomboy being a young girl.
So now that you are involved in the sport of fencing, how long have you been involved, and what is your current role?
We've been in development fencing since 2016. My current role now is the president. I got elected as president for the American Samoa National Fencing Federation.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And how I'm going to elaborate a little bit how it all started. So our current Secretary General was at an ONAC meeting in Fiji and bumped into Helen.
Miss Helen Smith?
Miss Helen Smith.
Yes,
Helen Smith from the Oceania Fencing Federation. And she happened just to bump into Ethan and mention fencing. And so they introduced each other, and that's when Ethan said, hey, I know someone who's interested in possibly developing fencing in American Samoa. And so I got her information, we started emailing, and we started dialogue ever since then in development and trying to get everything we needed to get in line in order to become affiliated with our NOC, affiliated with the FIE, and also most important, starting our grassroots level program here to get it, to have a continuity moving forward with our program.
So you mentioned this Ethan guy. Now, is that Ethan Lake person that met us at the airport last week?
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about Ethan Lake.
Well, Ethan is my husband.
Smart man.
And he's been in sports for many years. I would say between 15 to 20 years in American Samoa, and prior to that, he also was in part of a lot of the sports program in the Air Force when he was stationed out in Europe. Okay. So, and he also was a wrestler, a football player, and so he also came from a background of sports as well. And so when he came here, he just used his experience through work, his skills and abilities, and he applied that through organizing sports programs here in our local community. And he was also the recent sports commissioner, and he had to resign from that to take a new position with Homeland Security here in American Samoa.
And then he has this other title, I think, that I've heard called Secretary General.
Yes, so he was elected in February 2017 as the new Secretary General for the American Samoa NOC.
You guys are definitely a power couple in the world of sports, and it's really good to have you as part of the world of fencing.
Thank you so much.
So tell me a little bit about the current American Samoa program, and what do you see, in the future for you?
Currently, we are in we're still what I call in grassroots level. So we're in the very beginning stages because we still lack equipment. We still lack coaches that we need with more experiences here. But what's most important is that we started off with the younger generation, which is we're exposing it to first graders on up to high school, and we're moving up to college. Now we focus on getting them at grassroots level because we want to evolve the program. We want to have, for example, right now you have second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, all to high school. So if we can get a number of those students continuing and learning and training in fencing, we'll have a long-term goal in getting these students that will become athletes for us fencers to actually become in our program real fencers, so we can actually get them into competition. First, we'll have our local competition, then our regional with the two Samoas and the other islands. Then we'll get them to the Oceania Championship, and hopefully we could make it to the Olympics someday for Team American Samoa.
That sounds really good.
Thank you.
Really good. So let's talk a little bit about our visit here, which has been very interesting. We've had, I'm just going to drop that underneath your arm. You just saw
Very eventful week.
A very eventful week. We've been, first of all, it was great coming in on the inaugural flight of the Hawaiian Airlines Airbus 330neo with Miss South Pacific, who's also Miss America Samoa.
Yes.
We had a little delay on the baggage, but Ethan came through with his Homeland Security connections and greeted us, and we've moved on from there. So, and I just want to say, that first day going to the school, and first having Leon Thomas here was, I think the man is just amazing with the kind of work he does. But watching him interact with the students, seeing how well they are developing and how quick they're developing, even with being rained out on numerous occasions, that enthusiasm and the passion was still there. How many students do you think you have introduced fencing to over these last few weeks, etc.?
Since we started the promotion of fencing, that was in 2016. Until your recent visit, we've exposed over 500, and that's just a smaller number. We do want to then target the public schools because they have the larger schools. They have about over thousands of students in the public schools.
Two things. How many programs do you have? How many different locations are you currently?
So for our community locations, we have here on the west side, the sports complex. And
that's the National Olympic Committee sports complex.
Yeah, that's the national. And so, and there's 3 big rooms, and so they're actually shared throughout the rest of the other sports federation. And so one of the location rooms there also will have fencing scheduled for their after school hours. And then on the east side, we have the Youth and Women's Affairs gym. It's out in our capital in Pago Pago. And so those are our 2 main locations. And so, we're starting with 3 schools. We have Pacific Horizon, so they're the Navigators. And then we have South Pacific Academy, they're the Dolphins. And then we have Manumalo, who's I believe they're called Flames. So these are 3 different schools with 3 clubs. And so because we've already spoken to the administrator and trying to include fencing as part of their physical education program, but not only that, we can have competitions within the schools. So we're starting with the schools that are private schools, but they actually have it from elementary up until high school. So we targeted really good locations for the schools. And not only that, there are really good locations within the central area. So there's more kids in this community that we're targeting so we can get more exposure and more promotion with fencing. So we have 2 after-school locations and then the 3 schools.
So you've got a great program. You've got great connection. I met, Jonathan, who is your director of youth and women, and really sort of de facto ends up being in the sports director role now that Ethan has had to vacate it, as he's just joined us in the background. And he's next up. What do you think it's going to take for you to reach that level and that future and that vision that you see for American Samoa?
For me, it's foremost is the structure and organization of our federation, good leadership and good people behind it, and people that are willing to work together to help us put these programs together. So everybody's going to have something. Will partake in the planning of our programs. So for example, if we have it over there at DEWA Center, I have Zena there, who's also now a certified beginners coaches. So he'll be teaching out there. And then on this side would be myself or Ethan. Then we have 2 will also be helping as one of the coaches. But we like to work with the schools and try to help them learn as much about the beginners, how to teach fencing, and also work with our National Olympic Committee and also with our International Federation, FIE, see how we can get supports, for example, equipment, things like that we need. We'll be partnering with the NOCs and trying to see how we can get some grants so we can actually try to get more experienced coaches here, and also try to see about getting support to go to Oceania Championships. But it's about getting experience about training. And then we get to the competitions. After competition, then we go to another level of competition, Oceania, and then we go further to the world. So short term, we're looking at what we're doing now with grassroots level, and then long term, maybe I would say to get where we need to be, I need at least 2 years to see, or less. I believe and have faith that we can get some fencers up to where they need to be to really get out and fence out in Asia, because I believe that's where some of the Oceania Championships will be hosted together with the Oceania continent. So we have to be ready for that level of competition.
Now, under normal circumstances, I would say that's it's extremely aggressive, but I would also say that in certain environments it would not be overly realistic. Mm-hmm. However, what we've seen is that American Samoa has such a strong sports culture. How do you think that's going to impact your ability to, 1, draw in the athletes, and 2, address some of the, as you've said, the health issues that, this sport and this type of activity can help with?
Well, the one thing I think a lot of people will see and realize coming to American Samoa, that Samoans are naturally athletic. Not just naturally, where if you show them a fencing stance, it won't take them a week to actually understand it. They know the footwork and how to use their arm and actually how to advance and retreat, which are very basic, important things about learning about fencing. Health-wise, this is an important factor because we're trying to include it in the school system, the physical ed, because we have to target them young. We do have a high obesity rate here in American Samoa. So health-wise, it's good to target them at a very young age, ingrain them about health, and also sports help them get be active. And hopefully we can get some of those students become fencing athletes, and this is a sport that they will love and want to do long-term, and that they will want to invest in, and in return the Federation will also invest back.
We're going to wrap up in a second, but I have one more question for you.
Yes.
You mentioned you saw fencing. We've been talking about fencing being that intersection between art and sport. Mm-hmm. Give me a little idea of your perception on how that fits in.
The
intersection, fencing being the intersection for art and sport.
That's a good question. I can just tell you by just watching just the posture, the composure of fencing, to me it is art, because you can't not look at it and say that it isn't. just holding the sword and moving like what Celso said yesterday, you walk like a cat and attack like a tiger. I mean, that is art. I mean, I've seen at the Olympic level where they're so stealth like a cat, where they move so fast you don't see it coming, and it's a lot of mental control and body control, and you have to be mentally fit and most of all also physically fit, just the two. And while you're in competition watching that, I mean, you have to have a sort of like a peripheral view. You have to see the sword coming, you have to see the footwork, you have to see where the person's trying to target you and trying to defend it and get a point on them. So but just even the gear and just watching the movement of the footwork and the arm and the posture and the stance of it is just a very beautiful art. It to me, it is art. There's no, I don't know how else to say it. It's almost like it's a dance.
Yes, I've heard that before as
yes,
well.
it's like right. It's like a dance back and forth, and it's also a battle while you're dancing.
You're dancing while you're trying to kill the other guy.
Exactly. Yeah, and so that's probably what I could think of why I think it's so. To me, it's a sport, but it's very artful in many ways.
Well, thank you for your time. Is there anything you want to add?
I just want to add that I want to let Donald, Anthony, and I want to thank you and Celso Dayrit as executives. Again, it's unheard of that we have you executives from the International Federation come down here and see what we're doing. It's such a blessing, and we are so grateful. And I apologize for the unfortunate weather conditions.
How can you can't control the rain? Come on, Irene.
I just didn't see this coming. It's unfortunate. But it's been a real pleasure. And again, we hope to see you guys maybe someday in the next few years or so come back and do an assessment visit and see where our program is going. But I don't think this is the last time you heard from me. I will definitely be in touch and also, getting some advice from you guys on how we can move forward to develop our sport in American Samoa. And there's not enough thank yous to say thank you, for being here, and thank you for your patience and, for dealing with the situation that we're in with the weather. But again, it's been a blessing and wonderful to have you guys here. We're very grateful. Thank you, Donald.
Thank you, Irene. It's been an honor to be here. You guys have been amazing hosts. The weather, is something that none of us control, and it wasn't the worst.
I wanted to take you swimming. I actually wanted to hurry up and get here and take you to a beach not far from here, but I'm thinking there's just no way. We have to check out at 12.
Yeah, it's just not enough time to get everything done.
And the weather's nice, and it's
finally nice.
Beach weather, yeah. It's like, oh my gosh.
Well, we'll see. We'll run to the airport. We'll see what happens. But I want to thank you for joining us for this podcast, and I wish you much success, and look forward to coming back to Paradise sometime soon.
I appreciate it, and I hope that you guys come back.
Thank you for listening to this edition of the Sword Sport Podcast. The Sword Sport Podcast is a production of swordsport.tv and is produced and engineered by myself, Don Anthony, and Rick Lotzenheiser. We would like to give a special thank you to the King Arts Complex and their CEO, Demetrius Neely, for providing us a great space to work from in Columbus, Ohio. To subscribe to the Sword Sport Podcast, check us out on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and YouTube.